Welcome to Untitled Tech. My name is Ricky. Today we'll be testing the finals. Running on a Ryzen 5 3500X paired with 16 gigabytes of RAM, running on dual channel with XMP enabled, which brings the memory up to 3200 mega transfers per second. And I'm pairing it with the Nvidia GeForce GTX 1660 Super. The drivers that we're running it on is on Nvidia's 572.7. Here are the specs of the GPU on Tech Power Up's GPU Z. So we're gonna do low settings versus high settings on both no scaling and on FSR. On FSR3, we'll see if I can tell the difference. We're gonna leave it at 75% field view with motion blur disabled, and we're gonna start with everything else on the quality overall quality preset to low, and then we're gonna compare it to the epic settings, which in this case this would be the kind of like the highest that you can go. I want to stay away from menu screens, so I'm going to start doing the actual counting, and we'll get the results out of when I'm actually in the game. So we're going to go on a quick, normal quick cache match, and I'm going to try my best to get the results within the same match, so that we can get an idea of the kind of performance that you can expect out of a system like this. Alright, we're going to start counting the FPS now, and here we go. Alright, let's see what we can do. Okay. Well, that wasn't so great, but it does give us an idea of what FSR on low can do. So we're gonna stop.
The steamrollers have returned to the arena.
Retaliation is on the cards. The mighty will need eyes in
and then now we're gonna start counting the FPS on epic.
What a way to open the match! The mighty land the first cash out.
Just look at those proud faces, Scotty. What a show!
Okay, here we go. So that's gonna take care of that. And then no scaling on low settings. Alright, let's start counting that.
The mighty will need to try again. Team White.
Scotty, someone meddled with their might.
Whoa, Juno, we started with comedy because I'm feeling it. Impressive steal by the steamrollers.
Stop it right there, and then switch it over to epic settings without any additional upscaling. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump over to the results. And alright, very good. So starting off with AMD's FSR3, under the low preset, the average frame rate is 126.7. The minimum frame rate was 10.9. I didn't really see that much of a stutter when I was playing, but it's definitely there. And maximum frame rate is 161. When we switched over to the epic settings under AMD FSR's under AMD's FSR3, we're getting an average frame rate of 90.9, a minimum frame rate of 73.8, a maximum frame rate of 104.7. Still, they're both playable, but this is an FPS shooter, so definitely personally, I would just stick to low settings. Now, when we turn off upscaling and then you get a more native resolution, at least within the few changes, this is probably how I would run it instead. It felt better, and the input lag felt a little bit less, in my opinion. So I think you guys should try this way first, without any upscaling at all. The low settings had an average frame rate of 122.4, a maximum frame rate of 101.8, maximum frame rate was 150.4, with a 1% low of 70.3. Even when we switched over to the epic settings, the results were actually pretty respectable, with a 62.8 average frame rate, minimum frame rate of 49.9, a maximum frame rate of 74.7, a 1% low of 44.2, and a 0.1% low of 31.3. It works pretty well for the finals. If you are going to run it just with the GTX card, just ignore any of the upscalers. Just run it native, in my opinion. I think it runs better. The input lag is a lot less. Today we'll be testing Helldivers 2. Right, so we're gonna have them on a match, and I'm gonna test both the high versus low settings in the same match. Again, anyway, let's get started. Let's hop on the graphics. So we can start off on display. We're gonna set up the render scale at ultra quality. Under the low preset.
Hellpods prime. Engaging orbital thrusters.
Let's get started. All right, for Super Earth.
Let them come. Let them brawl. Let them face the insurmountable might of the Helldivers.
How'd you like the taste of freedom?
Additional reinforcements funding approved.
Bag's empty.
Alright, very good. So we're going to go ahead and get started with counting the FPS on ultra settings. Let's go. Okay.
Injury? What injury?
Good!
Let's go.
Throwing grenade. Oh.
While we're here, I'm also curious about the Steam Deck setting that they have. Alright, let's go ahead and do a benchmark on that one. Start counting the FPS, same amount of time, and here we go.
Last reload.
Alright, let's make it count in. Let's go ahead and jump into the results. Alright, so starting off on low settings, we have an average frame rate of 78.5 FPS with a minimum frame rate of 60.9 and a maximum frame rate of 97.6. When we switched over to the ultra settings, the average frame rate goes down to 48.2 with a minimum frame rate of 40.9 and a maximum frame rate of 61.5. When we switched over to the Steam Deck settings, we get a average frame rate of 71.5, a minimum frame rate of 49.3, a maximum frame rate of 93.6. Overall, a system like this can handle Helldivers 2 pretty well, especially if you're willing to use the Steam Deck settings. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to help. All my tests are run with default settings, only with XMP or DOCP enabled in the case of this board in particular. And thank you so much for watching. Today we'll be testing Marvel Rivals with low settings, and then I'm going to switch it over to the ultra settings and see how it compares. As per usual, I'm going to be counting the FPS inside the actual match. I don't want to include the FPS of things like menus or loading screens. Oh, wait a second, I never started counting the FPS.
More resilient than you think.
Okay, let's see. What do we got?
You get a wet.
The moon haunts you!
This is a nice spot.
Spider mode! One of Moon Knight's onks.
Your sacrifice won't be in vain, Johnny. They're ahead of us. Watch your
By the Agamotto!
Spiders don't go down this easy.
Oh no.
By the eye of Agamotto! I am strengthened for battle.
Double KO!
I'm not ready to.
Okay, now let's stop counting and switch it over. Ultra settings. Now we're counting ultra settings.
Whoever they are, they don't look friendly.
The odds weren't fantastic.
It really goes down quite a bit in terms of FPS, but we're still very close to 60 FPS, so I don't know. I think it's still good.
There's still more work to be done.
But it depends on what you consider to be playable. If you want to be competitive, you definitely keep it on the low settings. Personally, I barely notice the difference. Maybe it might be my monitor or something like that, but
The moon haunts you!
Hey, T! Enjoy the amplifier! Pulse charge, fire!
alright, there we go.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
Well, I guess we lost. I'm not surprised. Very good. With that, that takes care of the benchmark run for today. Back into MSI Afterburner, we're going to go into the results for the benchmark run. And in the low settings, the average frame rate was 99.5 with a minimum frame rate of 44.7, a maximum frame rate of 122.3. With ultra settings, this combination averages 54.6 with a minimum frame rate of 30.4 and a maximum frame rate of 120.1. And overall, I think it's a playable experience. Is it a competitive experience? Probably not, because if you want to get close to, for instance, my monitor is it's a 1080p 165 hertz panel, so this wouldn't be enough. But overall, I think it ran pretty well. Today we'll be testing Fallout 4. So one thing to remember about Fallout 4 is that all the physics and everything is tied to the FPS. So in order for me to perform any kind of test that would be relevant, in my opinion, I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep an eye on the CPU and GPU percentages on the overlay. So I made the overlay a little bit bigger so that we can keep an eye on the GPU and CPU percentages and temperatures, and just overall the how the assets of the CPU are being used. I suspect that the average frame rate is going to be pretty stable, so we'll see. On the meantime, I want to do a nice something that would include both city and the countryside. So we're gonna fast travel to Diamond City. Okay, very good. So we're standing outside the main entrance on Diamond City, and we're gonna test ultra versus low settings. See how they compare. Hopefully the difference in image quality comes across in the capture card. Otherwise, I'll do my best to try to tell you guys about it. Let's get started. We're still gonna count the FPS anyway, because I want to see if I see any spikes or any drops while we're running. Overall, it's staying pretty stable. $76, $77, $75. And we're gonna go ahead and stop counting the FPS over here. And now let's go ahead and switch over to the low settings. Alright, very good. So we're under the low settings, and let's see how much that affects in terms of like percentage and utilization, and see if we can notice a difference. Let's go ahead and see if we can load a previous save. Very good. And we can try to replicate the run as much as possible. And that's something that I'd like to do whenever I have games that don't have a built-in benchmark. I'd like to do my best to try to compare or get as close as possible to the previous run as I can. Very good. Okay, so we're going to get started with counting the FPS once we're out here. The difference between high and low settings is quite noticeable. All the textures become much softer. And you can see where they kind of do a little bit of cutting to get the system to run, and it is helpful in other systems, but in this system it barely makes a difference. So let's take a look. We're gonna go ahead and start counting FPS and try to repeat the run as much as we can. Hi, Mr. Raiderman. Sorry guys, but I got a test to do. Okay, very good. Difference in utilization is quite noticeable. 31, 33. Alright, let's see if we can find some of those ghouls. Or not. Go to sleep. Alright, let's go hang out with the super mutants. Overall, I'm going to share the frame rate on the screen, only because it's pretty much 60 FPS. There's a couple of dips here and there, but those are just the system, just Fallout 4 being Fallout 4, I guess, because even throughout the whole time the frame rate chart has been completely stable. But there is a noticeable difference between the GPU utilization when we go from low settings to high settings. We go from somewhere around 70%, between 70 to 75%, all the way over to down to around 39%, between 39 and 45%, when you're using the low settings. So in my opinion, if you have a system like this, you should just leave it on ultra settings and you'll be perfectly fine. This is an old game after all, so it's not surprising, but I hope you guys find this useful at all. In any case, thank you so much for watching. Today we'll be testing Fortnite. I'm running Fortnite on performance mode, and we're starting the run on the high settings, maxing out the FPS up to unlimited. We're running on 100% 3D resolution, epic view distance, epic textures, and high mesh. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be running the test on the same way that I usually like to test the systems, on a battle royale match with rank turned off. Let's get started. Alright, very good. So let's go ahead and start counting. buildings a little bit, get a little bit of movement going. Go up the stairs. Break the tree. Come on. Oh. So now that we're done with the high settings, we're gonna go ahead and switch the run over to the low setting. The strange thing is that lowering it down to 0% 3D resolution for some reason now just completely ruins the game. So if I was to run the test the way that I ran it on the previous run, which was the run with the GTX 750, it would look something like this. And it didn't look like that on the last on the last video. So I don't know what happened. So instead we're gonna increase the 3D resolution to make it look as close to what it was before, and we're around 50%. Kind of gives us more or less the look that the 0% had before. So we're gonna go with that. So for the low settings, we're gonna go for 3D resolution at 50%, so that way we can retain details. View distance and at near, textures on low, and meshes at low. Trying to replicate the same run. Alright, very good. So now that we're landing back on the island on low settings, after a little chance to let the system load, we're gonna go ahead and get the count started again. There we go. Got a little bit of building going. And once again, try my best to replicate the run as much as possible. So I remember that I built a ramp over here. Alright, so we're gonna go this way to try to get as close as possible to replicate the run. And I think we jumped up there. There we go. Over here. Got over here. Very good. Jumped over this crane. Broke down this tree. Okay. Alright, very good. And that should give us enough idea of how the performance is going to run on low settings, I think. So we're going to stop the FPS count, and we're going to go back to the lobby for now. Okay, so these are the results of the low versus high settings test run of Fortnite for today. So on the high settings, the average frame rate was 164.3 with a minimum frame rate of 89.9, a maximum frame rate of 195.5. With a 1% low of 52.2 and a 0.1 low of 3.34. Fortnite is known for stuttering a lot, so I usually don't even pay too much attention to the 0.1. And then on the low settings in the final run, after we let the system load a little bit and get everything going, we ended up with an average frame rate of 160.3. A minimum frame rate of 117.3, a maximum frame rate of 204.7, and a 1% low of 70.1. So although the difference in between having low settings versus high settings doesn't seem to yield that much of a difference in terms of the max number of FPS that you're going to be able to get out of a system combination like this, what you will get is a more stable game. If you guys are wondering why I test Fortnite more than any other game, A, because I love the game, and B is because this gives me a known variable, a known quantity that I can compare with other hardware. That being said, if you guys have any game that you guys would like me to test, or any suggestions for any changes that I could make to the channel, or anything else you'd like me to check, let me know. My name is Ricky, this is the Nantum Tech Benchmarks, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye bye.
All it's supposed to